Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Crystal Henry TV. We are interviewing none other than the amazing Professor Gaynell Sapenter Gainer. We have gone through several sessions, some amazing Blacknificent history of radiologic technology. She was a program director. She started a phenomenal radiologic technology program at St. Philip's College. And so we've gone all the way up to close to the 1980s. We've dealt with the 70s history and the beginning of her program. So we are going to start off this session with the associations that she was a part of, being the first Black to hold offices in her state. So hello, Professor Gainer. How are you today?
I'm fine, and I'm blessed and very happy to share my story.
Well, thank you so much again for joining us and for giving such a powerful, powerful word. So can you tell us what associations you have been a part of?
Thank you. Well, I'll start with the societies that were associated with the program that I founded back in 1970. Naturally, one of my goals, were to encourage my students to affiliate with societies that were professional and that covered and focused on their major, radiologic technology. So I did join and became an active member and officer and eventually president of the Alamo Area Society of Radiologic Technologists. And I also encourage my students to become members of that society, as well as the Texas Society of Radiologic Technologists. So in doing so, I eventually became an officer, served as a secretary of the TSRT, as they called it then. And I also was elected as vice president, and then later in 1996, 97, I was elected president and served as president of the Texas Society of Radiologic Technologists. Now, there were other African Americans serving in other positions, lower positions, area counselors at the Texas Society, TSRT. But I was the first elected president of the Texas Society of Radiologic Technologists of African American descent. So I think that's important to mention. I was not focusing on that. It's just the phenomenon. It just occurred. I've also, because of being a college professor, and I did get my master's degree in 1973-74 from Southwest Texas State University, which is referred to as Texas State University now in San Marcos.
So wait a minute. So you were instructing your students, you were leading this program, you were holding office in the Radiologic Technology Society of Radiologic Technologists, and you were taking your master's?
Yes, I did study for my master's degree, and I was able to achieve that goal. And the chair of the Department of Allied Health Education invited me to teach graduates of that program immediately after I finished. And so I was teaching some extension courses through going to Fort Sam Houston's area at the academy. And I was able to teach courses part-time there. So that was a blessing to do that part-time at night. And I did get permission to do that while I was teaching full-time at St. Philip's and directing the radiography program.
So let me ask you a question, because my side of what I am hearing, I'm understanding that you, your intellect is phenomenal. It's far beyond the scope of the stereotype of a Black woman in America. And so not only were you writing the curriculum and setting up the different standards for this program. As a child, I remember you going to Austin, Texas. Was that to get bills passed for radiology technology?
Yes, I almost looked over that. As a member of the Texas Society of Radiologic Technologists and an active member and officer of the Alamo Area Society of Radiologic Technologists, I became involved with the mandate, assisting with mandating continuing education for radiologic technologists in Texas. And I just happened to befriend Mr. Frank Madler, who was teaching part-time, government courses at St. Philip's College. And in talking with him, he was able to help us in Austin to get our bill passed by being attached to one of the House bills he was working on. And so we were able to get our bill passed in the mid to early 80s and late 70s and mid 80s. We were very fortunate to have mandatory continuing education for radiologic technologists in Texas.
So you were even you were even involved in passing laws. Now, this is some amazing, magnificent history. Now, I also remember you traveling to different colleges. Can you give us some background history of why and what you were doing when you were traveling?
Oh, yes, thank you. The I should say, all programs, accredited programs, in order to maintain their accreditation, it usually occurs every 4 to 5 years, unless there's a problem. Then of course they'll follow up maybe after a year or two, just to make sure that certain standards have been met. And so because I was also a member of the American Society of Radiologic Technologists, which is a national society affiliated where TSRT was affiliated with the ASRT, the American Society of Radiologic Technologists. That body included and involved the Joint Review Committee on Education and Radiologic Technologists. So most of the program directors that were leading accredited programs like myself, we would go to workshops and we would become proficient in reviewing and following the standards that were laid down by this organization, JRCERT. So over 2 or 3 years, I became very proficient in looking at and identifying standards and rating them. And so as a result of that, for over 10 years, I was asked to be a site visitor for the Joint Review Committee on Education and Radiologic Technologists from the mid 70s on up to the 90s and up to 2000, excuse me. And so I would like to say that in visiting they would assign me to go to different colleges and universities as long as they had a 2-year associate degree program commensurate with mine or congruent with the type of program I had. And so I would be assigned. One of those years, which was like 85, 86, I was assigned to Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University. And I did go for the purpose of reviewing a radiography program similar to mine. And in looking at their curricula and looking at the curriculum and looking at their records, I saw in the financial records that they did have money allocated for students to enhancement courses and basic courses for English, math, and reading. And I did ask them, I saw quite a bit of money. And I asked them, what is this money allocated? How did you get these funds? And they said, because they were historically Black. And I went and did further research. I brought that information back to Dr. Stephen Mitchell, who was the first Anglo president that St. Philip's College had at that time. And I did talk with him. I set up several meetings. Of course, he was busy, and eventually I caught him in the hallway in the Norris Technical Building, which was the building that was built for allied health. That was the building I found out they didn't have a lab set up for me. It was just classroom. And I told Dr. Peterson, who was Dr. Powers, that we needed a lab. And that's a story that I told you a little bit about in earlier sessions. But I want to say that I talked with Dr. Stephen Mitchell about allowing me to have to look into the feasibility of St. Philip's being recognized as historically Black. And he eventually said yes. Of course, everything that has to be written and a grant be administered, it has to go through the district, the Alamo Community College District. So after it was reviewed, the application was reviewed, we were recognized by this time in 1987 as historically Black. So I was the catalyst for St. Philip's being recognized as historically Black. And in 1989, the designation of it being Hispanic serving came. And so it has a dual recognition. So St. Philip's in 1987 became the first community college in the nation with the designation of being historically Black. So I feel blessed to be a part of that history, which I don't think not too many people are aware of.
See, you never know. Like you said before, you do your best, you get knowledge wherever you go, and you were at the Tuskegee Institute, going along and reviewing their program and found out about them becoming historically Black. And then you brought it back to San Antonio. Now, when you started your program, was that president Black?
Yes, Dr. John Murphy was the president that was that was the dean. That was the highest position, again,
Okay,
at the campus. We had multi-campuses. So Dr. John Murphy was the dean at that time.
so that
And
is
the
amazing.
president was situated at San Antonio College. And that's one reason why the faculty and the staff were able to get more privileges or funds quicker because the president resided on the campus of San Antonio College as opposed to being in a neutral setting. They eventually changed that after protests and the fact that I was a charter member of the Faculty Senate. And after the Faculty Senate met several semesters between 1970, 71 on up to the mid 70s, they were able to find a site in San Antonio, downtown San Antonio, as a neutral site for the president and administrators of the Alamo Community College District to be housed so that they would be in a neutral setting. So the district has moved its locations a couple of times. It's over on Flores now. So it moved at least twice in my knowledge, to my knowledge, excuse me.
So my next question that I have for you, I understand that you filled out all the paperwork and now St. Philip's is a historically Black college officially. Now, how difficult was it for you to get grants to fund your program?
The program at the college setting, there is no mandate that says you have to write a grant. I took the initiative in the mid 70s. Once I was able to get the money to have a lab placed in a new science building, which we did have. The science building was built in the mid 70s. Prior to that, remember, we were in a brick building that was refurbished and remodeled to act as a lab, an energized lab. Then I had to, what were we doing while the science building, the first official science building, which housed nursing, allied health, and biological sciences, while that was being built, I was able to move into a portable building that was placed on campus, and I was able to continue teaching students of radiography technology without having a break. So that older X-ray equipment that I purchased was able to be moved over to this portable building. And from that portable building, once the science building was established and we were able to design a lab, then I wrote a grant. It was called a Texas Education Agency Enhancement Grant. And what did I do with that? I was able to hire one of our African-American students, Mr. King, and he was able to serve as a tutor and a skills specialist to monitor the X-ray students as they manipulated their positioning and manipulated the X-ray equipment in an energized lab setting. That to me was a blessing. So that was the first grant that I wrote. And this was voluntary, it was not mandatory. I've written several grants, but this was the first.
Excellent. And so you took, again, the initiative in order to launch grant writing and to be able to have the funds necessary to further the program, your radiologic technology program at St. Philip's College. Wow, what a history. What a phenomenal, amazing history. What were some of the other states that you went to? I know you said Tuskegee, was that Alabama that you went to? What are some of the other states that you went to when you went on your site visits?
I went to some colleges in Los Angeles, Hollywood area. Went to colleges in Raleigh, South Carolina areas. I've been to colleges in different states, even Chicago. But
that is amazing.
Remember,
so
these were several years. Yes. Now I did not get paid a salary, but they did defray my expenses, my travel expenses, and of course they paid for the hotel and our meals. And the big thing is we learned a lot while we were inspecting and evaluating the programs that we visited.
Excellent.
It was always either one or two individuals that would accompany, and they would accompany me during the site visit, but they were coming from other colleges and universities. A couple of them were even radiologists. They were doctors.
Excellent. So you had the opportunity to travel with your background, being a program director, being a part of the review board. You were able to expand your knowledge as well as their knowledge in reviewing those other
Yes, it was a win-win situation.
Excellent. Well, I think that we are close to ending this session of your phenomenal history. There will be a session 5, so please join us. It's so much. We could not put it in one long session. We wanted to break it up so that we could get all this phenomenal history, all your initiatives and your amazing launches, so that everyone can understand what a trailblazer you were, just boldly going beyond what anyone thought, and without any direction other than the Lord. So we
Yes.
appreciate you giving us this phenomenal history, and we will have another session, session 5. So y'all please stay tuned to Crystal Henry TV. Again, we are interviewing the amazing, phenomenal, magnificent Professor Gaynell Gainer.
Thank you. And with God's help, I look forward to another session and sharing.
Thank
God
you
bless
so
you.
much.